On the program today, we will take a deep conversation on issues shaping our nation, where our focus is drawn on the matter critical to both national security and economic development, the fragile relationship between farming and pastoralist communities in Nigeria has been a concern to many, with agriculture and livestock forming the backbone of rural livelihoods. Hence, conflict between farmers and herders has become an ongoing challenge with far-reaching consequences. But is there a way forward? Could conflict-sensitive communication hold the key to building peaceful coexistence and unlocking the full potential of Nigeria's livestock industry? These will form the crux of our conversation as we speak with experts, as community leaders and stakeholders in this vital sector to explore how strategic communication, dialogue and understanding can bridge divides and foster long-term peace. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Today. I'm Eucharia Clinton. Now with me in the studio for this conversation is Dr. Arthur Martins Agenam, a communication, governance and development specialist. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
It's my honor to be here.
Also with us for the conversation is Dr. Saleh B. Momale. He's a special assistant to the Minister of Livestock Development. It's a pleasure to have you on Nigeria Today.
Nigeria and Nigerians, good evening.
So I will start with you, Dr. Momale. The workshop, talking about conflict-sensitive communication in the livestock department. Talk to us a little bit about, this, when you say conflict-sensitive communication, tell us what exactly are you talking about here?
Thank you so much to the Nigerian Television Authority, once again, for bringing this topical national issue on the discourse and for continuously engaging Nigerians, creating the right atmosphere that will drive, like you call it in your background, sound social, economic, and political development that will promote stability, and that is, the benchmark for achieving national food security. I think Dr. Martins Arthur is most placed because he's not only he's a communication specialist, and he's an expert on conflict-sensitive communication, so I believe he will speak more on that. But the workshop that has been ongoing in the past 3 days, first of all with the top management staff of the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development, and continuing with some members of the Nigerian media space, is to look at how can we, as a government, work together, understand the importance of communication and the fundamental role it plays in engaging with citizens, in engaging with broad level of stakeholders, both within the public space, the private space, as well as our respective rural and urban communities, to send the right messages, messages that promotes unity, that promotes understanding among communities, among stakeholders, among various actors in the various livestock value chain, that will collectively result to improve productivity, increase social and economic stability, increase knowledge and skills for our farming and livestock producing communities. Messages that we can relate to Nigerians that will inspire people, both private sector investors and smallholder producers, to have confidence in their economy, in our nation, and to work together to create a harmonious working environment where productivity will be the key focus, profitability will be enhanced, and livelihoods will be sustained and improved. So over this period, we are focusing on that. We are communicating with experts. They are enlightening us. They are bringing in local, national, and international experiences. And these workshops were made possible through a collaborative relationship between the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development and the UK High Commission in Nigeria through the project it's funding, which is funded, which we call the SPRING program, that is implemented by Tetra Tech International in Nigeria, which is part of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Assistance and partnership between the government of the United Kingdom of Nigeria. So we are so happy that we have expert resource persons that have been speaking to us, that have been defining new pathways that we can adopt, both as a ministry and the media, to work together to pass the correct messages that will inspire Nigerians towards unity, increased cooperation, and thereby attaining increased food security for our dear country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mamale. Now, Dr. Aginam, when I, threw the question to Dr. Mamale, he technically threw it back to you. Now, tell us, talk to us about why is it important to have this kind of workshop at this point of our economic life, and also explain further conflict-sensitive communication, what it means.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and Dr. Mamale has really laid out the primary focus of the workshop. This ministry was created, I think, about a little over a year ago, and it's got a very important mandate that is capable of transforming the Nigerian economy. I think livestock development has been part and parcel of the Ministry of Agriculture, and with all due respect to previous governments, they did their best, but somehow there were a whole lot of structural issues and challenges that kept the ministry, kept livestock development from being a mainstay of the Nigerian economy. Interestingly, for instance, we look at livestock here, and somehow we think of it primarily at the subsistence level. People have goods and all kinds of domestic animals in their homes. But if you get to advanced economies in the US, in Australia, Brazil, who are the world's greatest producers of our livestock, some of the billionaires, apart from the guys in the tech industry, come from the livestock sector. Okay, so since the creation of this ministry, and of course there were prevailing challenges like the farmer header issue, part of what they have been asked to do is to be able to first and foremost create an enabling, peaceful environment on the basis of which they can now more fully realize their mandate. And we felt that yes, conflicts are part of life. Conflicts are inevitable. Conflicts are present at every level. Okay, sometimes you don't quarrel with yourself. Sometimes you talk about working from the wrong side of the bed, not to talk about having other people and the rest of them with their own issues in the family, between husband and wife and their children, in organizational settings, in communities and everything else. So conflicts are inevitable in life. That a country is peaceful is not the absence of conflict. It is actually the effective management of conflict, which is the acid test of good leadership. And that's why we felt it's important here that Nigeria has turned into one vast killing field, and we have become numbed. Today, 50 killed in Benue, 70 killed in Plateau, 40 killed in we have become all numbed and desensitized to that. But it cannot continue. And we simply felt that first and foremost, this ministry has the capacity to transform the Nigerian economy, and it cannot carry out its mandate unless it first and foremost is able to kind of get a handle on a more harmonious, conflict-free, not totally free, that kind of environment. And that was the essence of the workshop, to begin to think in terms of
properly managed.
Properly managed. Yes. So how do we engage? We think about, for instance, even the internal communication structure of the ministry, and then much more importantly, how you engage the conflict parties in these matters. It's not just about the farmer, the header. There are a whole lot of other sub-layers of the conflict, and that was why we felt that it's important to engage in the process of conflict-sensitive communication, both at the corporate level, at the organizational level and at the mass-mediated level. So in terms of journalists, for instance, the mass media being the purveyors of information, helping to set agenda in society, and how they can be of help in terms of learning the basic tools of conflict-sensitive communication, and what we also broadly, with respect to the press, call conflict-sensitive journalism. And we even extended further to issues around solutions journalism. How can journalists be part of the solutions and not just part of the problem by actually, helping to exacerbate conflicts through the reportage. So that was basically the ideas and the rest of them we have been dealing with for the past 3 days, and we're going to complete that by tomorrow, by God's grace.
So after this workshop, what is the ministry expecting, in some of these areas you're focusing on?
I think fundamentally, like Dr. Martins just mentioned, our goal is to work with Nigerians, to work with broad spectrum of people across the various value chains. The livestock industry is an enormous enterprise. If you take it from the micro level up to the macro level, the livestock industry is there. Nigeria is still dependent on so many imports that are unnecessary, draining our very scarce resources, creating unemployment. We want to drive this sector in accordance with the priority objectives that have been set forward in the Nigerian Livestock Growth Acceleration Strategy, which the ministry worked with national and international partners, as well as a broad spectrum of smallholder producers to put forward for the country. So we are looking at the overall sector. In terms of the species, we have various livestock species. In terms of the value chains, there are multiple value chains. In terms of investment opportunities, from individual investors to smallholder producers, to cooperative associations, to huge conglomerates and broad level international investors, just like Mr. President signed, the bilateral agreement with Brazil for the development of the dairy and beef sector. And then there are other value chains that could be developed to trigger rapid development within the sector in terms of feeds formulation, in terms of development of pharmaceuticals for livestock, management of livestock disease, in terms of training opportunities, and the service sector as well. There are a lot of opportunities within there. The delivery of veterinary services, especially now that globally we are promoting the concept of One Health. All of these are opportunities for Nigeria to develop this sector. So what we are expecting now is, after this engagement, we want to see a robust media engagements, massive participation of Nigeria's media practitioners and media organizations in collectively driving this sector. We want to see every media organization putting up a priority of promoting and creating the needed understanding among vast majority of Nigerians about the opportunities that exist in the sector, the mechanisms by which Nigerians can invest, and how to do the investments. Because what we lack, most importantly, is the knowledge and skills. So we want to see the media promoting us by making this knowledge, these skills, through mass media to vast majority of Nigerians. We want this awareness created. At the second level, some of the key drivers of conflicts, such as the breakdown in intercommunity relations, we want to see massive media support in mobilizing Nigerians to recognize that collectively, and that if we work together, to borrow the words of Mr. President while he was in Benue, we have enough to feed every child, to build livelihoods, and to grow our economy. And I repeat that. We have more than enough if we collectively work together to feed every child, to improve our livelihoods, and to grow our economy. And these are the messages that we want the Nigerian media to promote, to create that social harmony among our diverse rural and suburban communities, so that together we can mobilize this sector, improve its productivity, and achieve the goals of sustainable livelihoods, the goals of increased productivity, and thereby attaining food security, and in the long run, reducing some of the huge import bills that this country is currently battling with.
Thank you very much, Dr. Momale. We'll take a breather here. The conversation will continue after the break. And go away.
Of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that are questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today. We are looking at peaceful coexistence among farming and pastoral communities. And of course, I have two gentlemen here in the studio with me for the conversation. Now, Dr. Aginam, talk to us, of course. Dr. Momale has told us what the ministry is actually expected at the end of the day. Now, let us look at some of the issues here. We're talking about conflict, and what really comes to mind is the farmers and the herders. So tell us, what are some of the, from your own experience, what are some of the triggers of these, conflicts?
Well, sometimes conflict usually has a whole lot of levels, and kind of models, in terms of tools for its analysis. That is why what we call conflict analysis, you have to start first and foremost with understanding, the profile of the conflict. What are its history? How has it evolved? Sometimes conflicts move very quickly, over a short period of time. So if you understand that, because if you don't understand that, you can't engage, with it. So who are the actors? Who are the major actors? Who are the minor actors? Who are the victims? Who are the stakeholders? And what are the relationships between all these actors? You talk about, what we talk about, the structure of the conflict. You talk about, the triggers of the conflict. You talk about the proximate factors. I mean, something may be simmering in a community, low-level, pre-conflict levels. And somehow, there's a fight in the market. Somebody either gets beaten up or gets killed, and then the whole thing snowballs. That can be a trigger. Okay, so there are structural, deep-seated factors on the basis of which the conflict has always been festering for a long time. Then, of course, we have like the proximate factors that actually contribute to the toxicity of the conflict, and then you have the triggers. And then, of course, there are the dynamics of the conflict, how it's evolving, that kind of stuff over time. So there are a whole lot of other factors. The most important thing is to be able to, for you, if you can't understand it, you can't explain it. It's like in medicine, you first and foremost have to be able to kind of diagnose the disease. Then whether you can manage it or treat it, or there's not much you can do as a medical person. So those are some of the tools that a lot of NGOs, that are working in conflict are already using. And that's, by extension, part of what we are trying to impart to the journalists and the media professionals, because the media, for the most part, has a very adversarial mindset. It's almost always about, where there are disputations, where there are differences, where people are fighting. If they come to an organization and somehow everything is working very well, that's no news. But the moment it's like, the director is fighting the CEO, the journalist kind of has the tendency of ginning up conflict.
That's the headline.
That's the headline. Of course, with all the kind of sensational language that goes with it. Issues around framing, issues around labeling, that kind of stuff. So we are trying to get them to understand that you have to have a different mindset. You are very influential in society. You have a very important role to play. And if you understand that, then you can actually, by your story, trigger a whole lot of problems and a whole lot of issues.
I wanted to, talk about that, because most of the time the, journalists or the media, they've been really been pointed or been a kind of will I say the people that have been accused of being triggered this conflict. So how can the media or a journalist practically engage in conflict-sensitive communication?
Well, by a whole lot of ways. First, like I said, understanding the conflict. If you understand the conflict, what are the undercurrents? Who are the actors? What are the relationships of the actors? What are the dynamics? What are the triggers? Because by your coverage, not appreciating these things and covering them, the language you use and even the tone you set can actually cause more havoc. Okay, so that's very, very important, and that's a skill most of them don't have. Again, conflict-sensitive communication and particularly conflict-sensitive journalism. It's an emergent paradigm. It's not as if it's been there for over 20 years or whatever. It's something that is quite new, but it's taking hold and taking hold very, very quickly. So the idea basically is to help impart this knowledge to the journalists. So you can't give what you don't have. If you have the skills and the tools, it doesn't mean that imparting the skills to them will make all of them become conflict sensitive, because there are still people who have that kind of adversarial mindset that they say news is about the unusual, it's about conflict, it's about people fighting. That where there are positive developments and people trying to kind of do their work and working harmoniously and achieving results, that those things are not news. After all, they're supposed to do their work, okay? But the moment there are kind of issues and divisions, then the journalists and they get their critical juices going. So the idea basically now is that we are beginning to kind of engage, and the response has been quite great. People are telling you that they've learned so much. The skills and the tools and the rest of them they are getting. And yeah, we cannot solve all the conflicts in Nigeria, but we have to drastically find ways of reducing these conflicts.
But we've taken the first step.
Violent ones.
Okay, now, Dr. Momale, we've talked so much about, the media, the journalists, what they are supposed to do. But what then is the role of the, the community-based platform, the traditional rulers, in ensuring they, have developed mutual understanding between, let's say, the farmers and the herders now, even though it's not limited to them?
Yeah. I think, like you mentioned, there are broad-level stakeholders that must play critical roles. And the workshop that took place over this year, these few days, particularly the one where the directors from the ministry and other senior management staff were involved, one of the critical things from the experts that was passed to the ministry was that they must communicate. They must communicate. They must engage Nigerians. They must provide the information. They should never allow a communication vacuum. And I think this is what has been lacking or have been inadequate within the livestock sector. The level of information from the government to Nigerians have not been adequate. The level of engagements between the government, the traditional authorities, and the grassroots stakeholders have not been adequate. In states where some of those communications and mechanisms have been put in place, and community leaders and varied stakeholders are working very seriously, the level of tension and conflict is lower than in those states where there is high level of the breakdown in intercommunal relations. In those states, the violence, even insecurity, is higher in those areas. So what from the workshop and the lessons from the experts to the ministry and the other stakeholders within the government cycle, which includes our rebirth traditional authorities, is that we must communicate, we must open our doors to the media, we must open our doors to the Nigerian citizens, and we must engage. We have to pass the right information. We have to create confidence in people and then assure them that their needs, their demands, as well as their security and safety is the paramount concern of government, and that government is willing to provide that to them. If we do that, people will have confidence and will be able to see a de-escalation of some of the tensions that drive violent confrontations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleh B. Momale, the Special Assistant to the Minister of Livestock Development. Thank you so much. Of course, we have understood that we must communicate and communicate rightly too. And also Dr. Arthur Martins Aginam, a Communication Governance and Development Specialist. Thank you so much for coming on the program. And thank you for being part of the program. I'm Eucharia Clinton. Goodbye.